Well, good morning, everyone, and I wanted to start you off with some satellite imagery from last night. So as we watch the sun setting right in through here, we see this pattern we've been dealing with for a few days now over the weekend. There's been a frontal boundary draped into this area, delivering some incredibly heavy rainfall to pockets of the central and western Corn Belt. I'll show you those totals in a few seconds. A lot of isolated storms that have hit parts of the Ohio and the Tennessee Valley, getting into parts of New England and stretching all the way back down to the southeast. We expect that to continue. One other thing that's going to happen here is this front, as we saw last night, beginning to sag farther and farther toward the south, increasing our chances for storms in this area. But one of the features I'm really going to be paying attention to is kind of the northward extent of the southwestern monsoon. Because as we saw yesterday, the storms built up in the Sierra Nevada, into parts of Oregon, and there is some wildfire smoke mixed in with that, as you can see as the sun set. But what we're going to be paying attention to today as the sun rises is how far to the north do those storms go. Now, since we're talking about the storms, I do need to bring your attention to the storms that moved through this part of the Corn Belt last night. Because on radar, take a look at this. A lot of scattered convection here, but watch the heavy rains really develop right on the slow-moving front right in through here. And once again, we had a training thunderstorm event where the storms kind of followed the front, where the wind was parallel to the front, not perpendicular to it. And that delivered some locally very heavy rainfall into this area. Looking back over the last 7 days, now you can see it. So parts of South Dakota, like around Sioux Falls, just incredibly heavy rain there. And then getting into southern Minnesota, northern Iowa, into southern Wisconsin, and right here in northern Illinois. This was the heavy rainfall from last night, some places picking up 6 to 8 inches. Now, when I look at this, I'm really focusing on the folks that have gotten a lot of the rain and who've not. And if we're just thinking about the Corn Belt here, you can see a lot of holes still in this over the last week in certain areas. But before we get into that more, Southern Plains, Central Plains, large areas here which haven't picked up any rainfall in the last 7 days, or even, of course, long before that. But the the southeast has been fed on plenty of Gulf moisture pulling into those frontal boundaries that have kind of stretched right into this area. And we're going to see how much more rain we can get out of that. But there are pockets of drought that are developing around the country, and I spent some time in today's report really focusing on that. One of the things we're going to do here is we're going to look at a 30-day evolution of the soil moisture values. Please take a look at that in this morning's report, because even as of this morning, we still see a large area in parts of Kansas, northern Missouri, southern Iowa, stretching back into parts of Nebraska, South Dakota, and then here that have missed out. We've seen some regional drought development in parts of the southeast and New England we discussed. And of course, the longer term issues that have been going on in Texas are also discussed there as well. You see, we can compare this map to a 30-day precipitation anomaly map, and it's just another way to see those locations that have seen a lot of rainfall and those that have not. Of course, we put this map in the report too. But I was a bit, I don't know if the word is impressed or just amazed to see that year-to-date precipitation statistics are quite alarming for parts of Texas and then getting over to California. So you notice down here, Texas is possibly having a top 3 driest start to any year on record. So from Jan 1 all the way through the 7th of August, extremely dry here. We can see the high plains drought getting into the western Corn Belt, whereas getting over here into the Tennessee and Ohio Valley on the year, it's been quite wet. You can now see where some of those pockets of drought are redeveloping in parts of Georgia, coastal North and South Carolina. But then I mentioned California a few moments ago. On the year, part of the Sacramento Valley and the northern tip of the San Joaquin Valley here having its driest year on record. And a lot of that was because of the lack of rainfall and snow back in January, February, and March. Okay, so what we look for this time of year to really be corrective on the drought in this area, though, would be tropical systems. They can, of course, come from anywhere from the Atlantic or from the Gulf. And right now, I just want to let you know the National Hurricane Center has given this tropical disturbance just a bit south of the Cabo Verde Islands, which are here, a 40% chance of developing. There's so much model spread in this and a lot of unknowns. We're just going to watch it at this point and just see how things evolve over the coming days to see if this area of convection kind of sticks together and continues to organize. Now, thinking about that, over the next 15 days, this map kind of hones in on who's going to be seeing better chances at precipitation. We're going to see a lot of flow over the next few days like this, keeping this whole region with scattered storms and possibly some locally heavier rainfall. But with the rebuilding of a ridge that's going to slowly slide toward the west over the coming days, we're going to be watching the Central Plains in through this region really kind of struggle, I think, to see consistent moisture. What I'm very interested in seeing is you notice the models are really quite expansive view here of maybe what the monsoon could do. And there are some indications it might even be able to push some moisture back into the plains as we get into week 2. So let's take a look at what this all means by first going here to the upper level high pattern. Ready? So as we go through the middle of this week, this is where the ridge begins to rebuild. So the flow pattern's highly amplified, but it's doing something like that. So that's going to take some heat out of the Pacific Northwest again, where it's forming now, and push it back into the plains. As we work our way toward the weekend, this will probably be the largest expanse of the ridge sitting here over the Central Plains. But again, that flow is doing something a bit like this. Now, as we go into next week, we're going to watch the ridge slowly migrate back toward the west. See that? And so with this particular setup, we need to see what that's going to do to the week 2 precipitation pattern. So let's go have a look at it here. Near term first, high resolution models show us through midday today and this evening. See where the storms are going to set up right there on that frontal boundary. A lot of isolated storms firing into this area. And we could see some of those storms getting back here, connecting up with the southwest monsoon. But watch what happens to the southwest monsoon, sending its moisture pretty far to the north into California, Nevada, and Oregon as we go forward. This is in the overnight hours, getting into Tuesday morning. And did you see that? This is impressive to see the monsoon sending those storm chances into that region. I expect a lot of lightning out of this, which means we're going to have the risk for fires. But as we get in through the day on Tuesday, could bring in some isolated storms to this area, which desperately need it. Now, as we play through there, you'll notice that front sags, and as it does so, we're going to bring in high pressure behind it. European model sees this pretty well. Let me show you. Let's get you out there toward Wednesday. That's where the previous run left off. So there's the front sagging. There is the southwest monsoon pushing north, and high pressure comes in behind this. Now, what'll be interesting to watch is Thursday into Friday. The models have been keen on developing an area right in through here of additional showers and storms. And again, we've noticed the drought problems here in the western part of the Corn Belt. So I'm going to keep an eye on that for late this week. This will likely be a Wednesday, Thursday, early Friday event. But as we play it forward from Friday into the weekend, again, see how far north that southwest monsoon is going to make it? Higher pressure comes into here, giving us over to some drier conditions. But playing this into early next week, that seems to be the setup, all right? So let's stitch it together here. This is the next 7 days precipitation anomalies. So again, southwest monsoon, drier in the interior outside of some isolated storms. We're watching that front sag into this area. As we go into week 2, notice this. That's what I'm going to have to watch carefully. As the ridge reopens and then pushes west, can we actually get this moisture out into the high plains from the Four Corner states? That's what we're going to have to keep an eye on. And with the trough of low pressure coming in like this, we can expect to see a sagging front once again and better chances for storms. Again, we don't see much in the way of tropical development from the latest model forecasts at this point hitting us in week 2, but we'll keep an eye on that. Let's finish this up with a quick discussion on temperatures. Today, our hottest conditions are down here in the lower Mississippi River Valley, in parts of New England, and then again in the Pacific Northwest. Watching the daily temperatures compared to normal, here's Monday's highs. The shading represents difference from normal. And there you go into Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of this week. Now you can see the heat rebuilding in the midsection of the country by Friday, getting into Saturday. But notice how the eastern Corn Belt versus the western Corn Belt has 2 entirely different temperature patterns given the proximity of that ridge. And the longer range forecast just keeps that there. This is that 5-day sliding window of temperatures. Seems to split right there on the Mississippi River as to the heat being west and the cooler conditions being to the east. At the end of the forecast run, though, the heat really begins to build back into the western United States and Canadian prairie as the ridge opens up there. In tonight's long-range report, I will be covering the new Farmer's Almanac forecast. Why not? Getting a lot of questions about it, so we'll hit on that. But we'll more importantly talk about the evolution of this La Nina and see where it's going to go. So I got brand new long-range data from the ECMWF coming to you tonight in the long-range forecast. And again, we'll talk about that Farmer's Almanac update for winter. I'll talk to you again this evening. Until then, have a good rest of your day. Thanks.